This is the second video, touring the old 100th Bombardment Group airfield, Thorpe Abbotts. In this video, we will be looking at the accommodation sites, the main communal site, the bomb dump, the western and northern sides of the airfield. Check out the previous video, to see the eastern side of the airfield and the technical sites. We ended the first tour, after visiting communal site 2, and the sewage treatment works. Heading west out of the bottom of that communal site, we drive towards the Women's Auxiliary Air Force site. Rather than female personnel, the site housed the officers, such as pilots, co-pilots, navigators and bombardiers. Heading across the road from the communal site to Billingford, the Women's Auxiliary Air Force site was on our right. As can be seen from the video and following picture, the site has been completely cleared and returned to agriculture. Continuing west along the road, we reach Grove Farm. The airfield was built around Grove Farm, which continued to operate throughout the war. We turn left here, heading south a short distance before stopping. We are now at the east side of Site 3, the 349th Squadron accommodation. This is another site that was completely leveled, with all roads and huts removed. Following this road south past the 349th site, it swings left and right, before a right-angle turn, not too far away from the sewage treatment works. From here, there's a short stretch of road west, before it turns to the southwest, heading for Site 4. As we approach Site 4, a concrete all-at hut survives on the edge of the wood. This was the accommodation for the 350th Bomb Squadron. It was one of two such huts in this location. The museum tried to cut one up to be reassembled at the museum site, but it proved to be too difficult to salvage, and I presume it went to landfill somewhere. The surviving all-at hut was in quite good condition during my visit, but I've been told that it is in a dangerous condition now. It's a shame the dismantled hut couldn't be saved. Amongst the woodland, at least 2 blast shelters survive. The site has been completely swallowed up by the woodland. Moving to the road heading east out of the site, as the camera pans right, by comparing the video to the map, you get an impression as to how large the site was. On the eastern edge of the wood, the mechanical and electrical plinth survives, and can be seen from the main road. Following the Site 4 road east, brings us to the main north-south road to Billingford. We turn left here, travel south about 70 yards, which brings us to Site 6. This was the sub-depot site. Post-war, the huts on the southern part of the site were removed. Those on the north side were converted for civilian use, due to the housing shortage. As a result of these conversions, the huts remained in fairly good condition. The civilians remained on the site for 20 years after the war, with the last leaving in 1965. The huts then started to fall into disrepair. Several huts remain on this site, albeit in poor condition. I believe one was dismantled and transported to America. It was then rebuilt at the mighty 8th Heritage Center, in Savannah, Georgia, where the 8th Air Force was formed. Coming back out of the site and turning right, we head south for about a third of a mile. This brings us to the main A143 road, and one of the main entrance checkpoints to the airfield. It was at this location where I did another 2 recreations of wartime photos, using my 1943 Ford GPW Jeep. My pictures were taken in 2015, around 20 years after most of the other tour pictures. Several trees can still be identified from the wartime pictures. We now turn around and head north back up the Billingford Road. Just before reaching the village, we pass the western side of Site 3, the 349th Squadron accommodation. All that survives today is a farm gate across what was the northern entrance road. Nothing else remains. We continue north into the village, turning left where the road swings right. We stop after 200 feet, looking right up one of the roads into communal Site 1. As can be seen from the map, there was a row of 8 huts to the right of this road. Nothing of them remains today. Just beyond the huts, and to the right, was the sergeant's mess. The mess area has been returned to farmland and nothing remains to be seen. This view, back on the main road, is looking east at the generator house. The sergeant's mess would have been on the left edge of this picture. Just opposite to the far end of this row of huts, was the dining hall. Like most of the communal site, this building was cleared, and the area is now overgrown. We now continue east along the edge of the communal site, until reaching the end of the road. To our right is Site 1, the 351st Squadron accommodation. Looking north up the entrance road into the site, there are 3 surviving buildings, several blast shelters and some hut bases. The closest building is the sergeants' and airmen's latrines. The building behind, with the tower, was the sergeants' and airmen's ablutions and drying block. Just out of shot to the right, is another small building, the officers' ablutions and latrines. To the south of Site 1, was Site 5. This was the 418th Squadron accommodation. The site is overgrown, with at least one hut base surviving, some blast shelters and some remains of the coke compound. I was only able to photograph the entrance road, shown here. Crossing the triangle road from Site 5 to the communal site, we drive northeast to where the road to Site 2 branches off. An overgrown blast shelter survives just to the right of where the car stops. Site 2 was used for civilian accommodation for a short time, but was one of the first sites cleared. Some hut bases and blast shelters survive, but the area has been completely swallowed by woodland. Turning right into the communal site, we pass the location of the institute on the right, before arriving at a surviving Nissan hut. It was in poor condition in the 1990s, and has collapsed further in the following 30 years. It is listed as the grocery and local produce store, but I was told by the museum that this hut was used by the base Red Cross girls as their accommodation. Opposite this hut was the coke compound. We continue northeast, passing several blast shelters on the right, and the location of a long-gone latrine on the left. At the end of the road, we see the emergency generator set house straight ahead. To our left, there used to be a building that contained the airmen's showers, ablutions and decontamination building. To the right, there was a water tank and ration store. The emergency generator set house was used to provide power to the airfield, if mains power was lost. It was frequently test run during the war, but was never needed in an emergency situation. The generator house is probably the largest surviving airfield building. It can still be seen from the air, even though this clearing has now filled in with trees. Turning left at the generator, and heading north about 100 feet, we come to another surviving building. Actually, a partially surviving building. The building is the sergeant's showers. The water tower survives, but the part of the building that contained the showers has gone. Heading north once again, there weren't any other buildings on either side of this road, until we stop at the next junction. Continuing north would take us to the base hospital site. Nothing remains of this site. It was cleared soon after the war. Turning right at this junction, brings us to the water treatment area. 2 buildings survive here. Closest to the road is the chlorinating and softening plant. It was still in good condition, inside and out in the 1990s. On the back of this building, there is a large concrete tank. I'm guessing this was the chlorine tank. The other building, standing further from the road, is the pump house. This building contains the borehole down to the water table. We dropped a stone down the hole, and worked out that it was around 150 feet deep. The inside of the building was in good condition, with paint still on the walls, and electrical conduit still fastened around the walls. From the water treatment area, we head east out of the communal site, turning left onto the public road. We follow the road north until we reach the old perimeter track. My Jeep is parked where the road meets the perimeter, and we are looking west, with dispersals on either side of this track. Originally, it was twice as wide as this, but has been reduced to about 25 feet wide, now that it is a public road. The 13 dispersals shown in red, all belong to the 418th Squadron. 6 of the frying pan dispersals were located on this field, to the left side of the road, looking west. In this view, we are looking south across the 4 loop dispersals, located next to the technical site. Standing behind the Jeep now, we are looking southeast, along the perimeter track that led to the hangar. This stretch of perimeter track, and beyond the hangar, was where the 350th Squadron aircraft were parked. The following aerial picture shows both the 418th and 350th Squadron dispersals. Near the top of the picture, on the edge of the technical site wood, there is an area of bare earth. This is where the T2 hangar and crew lockers were. Turning around from where the Jeep was parked, we head west, halfway along the road. On our right is the remains of Dispersal 46. This was also on the edge of the Airbase Works maintenance site, which lay to the right of the dispersal. Following the road, almost to where it cuts across the airfield, then turning to look back, we are looking southeast along the 418th perimeter and dispersal area. The base hospital was in the woodland on the right, behind the dispersal area. Turning around and heading west again, we drive along the perimeter that once led to the end of runway 10. As the track begins to turn right towards the runway, we turn left, heading south to the ammunition and bomb dump. The rest of the perimeter track in this area was broken up in the early 1980s. It was removed to become hardcore, along with much of the other airfield concrete. This road takes us a safe distance from the flying area, before turning towards the first munitions stores. We stop at one of the ammunition stores. The airfield plan describes this as the fused and spare bomb store area. Turning right to look west here, we see a woodland which marks the eastern side of the bomb dump. We now continue south, to the junction. To the left, the road heads back into the rest of the ammunition dump. We are turning right here, and driving to the eastern side of the bomb dump. The dump was divided into 4 areas for bomb storage. Each concrete storage area had a road down each side, to give the bomb trucks easy access. Mounds of earth divided the store into smaller areas and also provided a blast wall. In reality, one bomb detonating was likely to trigger that whole store, as happened at Metfield Airfield. Back to the car again, and following the road around to the southern bomb storage area. The closest point between these 2 stores is around 400 feet. Each of the next 2 stores are around 200 feet apart at their closest points. The woodland around the bomb dump existed before the airfield, and the area was chosen so the woodland could provide some degree of camouflage. When planning out the layout of an airfield, it was usual to try and position the bomb dump on the opposite side of the airfield to the accommodation sites. We've now arrived at the southern section of the bomb store. These 4 sections of the dump would contain the high explosive munitions. We are looking straight along the store, with the bombs in the center of the picture, and an access road down each side. Post-war, the bomb dump was partially cleared, the earth blast walls leveled, and trees planted in the area. Some concrete remains and at least one of the twin roads runs around the whole dump. The other 2 legs of the dump look very similar, so we're turning around here and heading back towards the ammunition dump. As you can see from the video, the surface of the road is quite broken up, with lots of potholes. We had to drive very slowly over this area. As we round this left bend, there was another turning to the right. This was another road that looped back around to the current road, closer to the perimeter track. The incendiary bombs were stored in this area, on 4 separate storage areas. Halfway around that road, there was also a pyrotechnics store. To our right here, was the small bomb container store. Next on our right was the component and small arms ammunition store. Once more on our right, the light and heavy fusing point. The road joining from the right is the other end of the incendiary stores road. As we round this corner, we stop at the ultra-heavy fusing point on our right. On the inside of this corner, was the last of the ultra-heavy fusing points. We now rejoin the perimeter track, turning right, then left onto the public road that cuts across the airfield. We stop halfway across the airfield, where the reinstated road crosses the position of the main runway. The majority of the runway lay to the east of this road. Small traces of the concrete runway survive to either side of the road. Looking west, there is no trace of the runway or perimeter track. Before the road was reinstated, road users drove around the western loop of perimeter track, to get between the two sections of public road. Driving another 550 feet north, brings us to the 351st Squadron perimeter track. This is the long straight track that runs parallel to the main runway, and goes past the control tower. Looking east, the 351st Squadron perimeter track is full width and probably in the best condition of all of the perimeter tracks. The western view shows the track has been removed and the area returned to farmland. In the right conditions, both the runway and perimeter track show up in this field as parch marks. Just after passing the 351st Squadron track, on the right of the road, was the underground, aviation fuel store. Its position can be seen in this aerial photograph, along with the positions of dispersals 3 to 7. B-17, hang the expense, was parked up on dispersal number 7. You can also see that part of dispersal 5 survives. We pass the fuel store, then turn right onto the public road that leads back to the museum. Just next to dispersal 5, seen on the right, was Draper's farm. It was into this farmyard that the original B-17, hang the expense, crashed during an aborted takeoff, when the tailwheel locking pin sheared. About halfway back to the museum, the road runs close to dispersals 6 and 7, as can be seen in this aerial photo. 6 was closest to the road on the right, while number 7 was closer to the perimeter track, just in front of the woodland. The end of runway 17 wasn't far away. During one of the reunions at the airfield, I had my 1/6 scale B-17 on display, along with John Deacon's B-24 Liberator. We took them both onto the 351st Squadron perimeter track for photographs, near dispersal 7. From runway 17, it is only a short drive back to the museum. The last aerial photo is of Thorpe Abbotts village, where the airfield took its name from. The ends of the secondary runways have been drawn into the top right of the image, showing the proximity to the airfield. I hope you enjoyed the tour. Check out part 1, if you haven't seen it, and look for the link to the flyover at the end of this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.